Welcome back to On the Nose. It's, I guess, your one-stop shop for finding out what went on the trading room floor in terms of the domestic thoroughbred racing meetings on a Saturday. Once again, I'm joined by Thad Taylor, who has his finger on the pulse, eye on what's happening, and hopefully he's got a wee bit of gold for us to have a look at this weekend.
Customers would want me to give them some good news, Paul. Am I going to? There were two domestic meetings on Saturday, Trentham and Rotorua. We won at one of the meetings. We lost at the other. I'll give you one guess which meeting we, the TAB, won out of those two.
I'm going to say the Champagne Turf at Trentham usually does.
Yes, as in, named the Punter's Graveyard for a reason, Trentham, and proved it to a degree. I mean, it wasn't a huge day for the TAB, but it was a winning day at Trentham, but it was a losing day at Rotorua, so we can get into the nitty-gritty whenever you like it.
Okay, well, let's start at Trentham, and race one was a 1,200-metre race for the juveniles, and Gavin Sharrock and Country Salon got home, and I'm guessing got us off to a very good start. Well, got the bookies off to a very good start.
Yeah, we've got to stop saying we, don't we? TAB,
yeah.
And, no, it did. In fairness, there were two horses they wanted. One was Belzoni, which was a very good winner last time, out for Lisa Latter, and that was backed into odds on to $1.90. Transcend. Well, this was the interesting runner. Your bet of the day, of course. Nearly got there.
Wow.
Debuted for the TAB Racing Club to Transcend, and she was very good. She was very good. She had excuses.
I wouldn't give her away. Unfortunately, no. I don't think we're going to get $9 on her next time she presents.
No, she was minus 50,000 Transcend. Belzoni, very well backed indeed. And Country Salon, 10 out to 14, just back to 12. Very late in proceedings was a winning start, plus 30,000 in the 2-year-old.
Right, race two, we're still down the chute, 1,200 metres for the 3-year-olds this time. And TriStar at 220. Maybe the Punters get one back there in race two.
Yeah, they do to a degree, because it was the only O'Sullivan Scott runner at Trentham, and they travel one down. They were always going to go pretty close, you would think. And they did with TriStar. There was good money for Anushka She's a Star, one of the John Barry pair trained in the race. So that sort of saved our blushes to a degree, Paulie, because there was so much money for Anushka She's a Star. She was minus 40,000. Albarossa, running some good races, went the other way in the marketplace, 280 out to 480. I don't know the reasons behind that potentially, although I only managed to finish third in a small field. But TriStar was 250 into $1.95. Would have been a worse result had it not been for Anushka Superstar, but I think it would call it break even there on the O'Sullivan Scott runner.
Right, race three was still down the chute over the 1,000 metres this time. And the favourite gets home, Tycoon Boss. So I'm guessing the Punters are starting to claw something back now.
I was just peering over your shoulder to see the margin. Yeah, 4.25 seems light. Felt like more.
And the jockey?
Yes, Bruno Queiroz. Yeah, good, well done to Bruno. He's on the board in New Zealand. Fair to say he's ridden a fair few in Brazil and Singapore. So, yeah, Tycoon Boss was very impressive. The writing was on the wall last time out when it was extremely well backed, and they came again. 250. It was 250 prior to scratchings. 210 into $1.95, minus 15,000. There were two horses they backed to potentially challenge it. Alcaraz for Lisa Latter was 8 into 5. Pixie Caramel was first up in the race. Didn't yelp, but was 11 into 650. So that was the other one that they did back, Alcaraz and Pixie Caramel. An interesting runner down in the bottom of the book, a Reconvene, was a 2-year-old going up against the older horses, which is slightly unusual. You see it a little bit more sort of this time of year. There was some funny money for Reconvene, and the run was big. I think it managed to finish 4th in the race. So maybe mark down Reconvene if we don't see it again this season, maybe one for next season. But Tycoon Boss took no prisoners, to be fair, minus 15,000.
Race 4, it was a benchmark 65 over the 2,200 metres, and Gallant Hero with Jonathan Riddell aboard gets home at around the $8-9 mark. So bookies starting to claw a wee bit there.
Well, I'm shaking my head only for the fact that this market was so strange. We opened the horses that ran the Quinella here, and Gallant Hero and Dubai's Potiki as the two favourites in the race, and they both blew. Gallant Hero went from 4 to 850. Dubai's Potiki went from 4 out to 750. They backed Comedy, they backed Latest Model, they backed Lord Spencer, and the biggest move in the race was for a horse called Side Piece, who was $12 into $4.80, if you like it. So, yeah, one of the ones where the marketplace just opposed the favourites, and it didn't pay off. I would potentially watch out for Side Piece as the winter progresses. The big move, 12 into 480, had to sit wide for the first almost 1,000 metres of the race, finally got in, boxed on the speed, and it was the back markers that really came into it. So I think Side Piece is a follow out of the race, but All in all, it was plus 30 for a friendless favourite in Gallant Hero.
Race 5, an open handicap over 1,400 metres, and Enrico at around the $7 mark gets home.
And speaking about two favourites that were easy, here's another two favourites that weren't overly well liked in Shanti Lace and Bradman. King of Hearts was the initial joint second favourite, started clear favourite, 340 into 250 King of Hearts. And Shanti Lace and Bradman both easy in this market. There was some movement at odds here. One was for Soldier Boy, 14 to $9. I don't know if you remember the race. It
Fell.
Stood in the gates.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, it stood in the gates.
Decided no.
Yeah, not today.
Okay.
Yeah, much like you when you turn up at work.
Well,
just wasn't interested. So sometimes that can happen. Chautauqua is the horse that, springs to mind when you think of horses that,
Chautauqua then once got the mind to it.
Yes, exactly.
Just went whoosh.
And once he got out of the gates, he was dangerous.
Whoosh.
But I mean, if you want to try and get these sort of 600 kilogram beasts to do something they don't want to do, it can be tricky. So Soldier Boy didn't compete, but there was money for it. The winner was shortened up, though, on Rico. Great training performance by Maloney Kelly. $14 into $8. But that move came particularly late when all the money had been for King of Hearts. It was plus 30 in Rico.
Race 6, benchmark 65 over the 1,400 metres, and Mediana Hudson gets train wreck home for punters.
Yeah, impressive train wreck. One of these races where it was knocked around a lot by scratching, so it's hard to sort of adjust to the moves, and it can be a little bit tricky, but train wreck was well backed. It was 750 into 550 first up, and it was minus 10,000. It was a blanket finishing behind, to be fair, so not sure how much we can take out of the form going forward. What I can tell you, there was good money for Super Gold. There was very good money for your Sky Full of Stars. I'll spit it out. Robbie Patterson. Not unusual to see a Robbie Patterson runner well backed. And Sandy Lane was first up, and there was good money, and it was a good run. So maybe Sandy Lane's the one that marked down out of the race, but train wreck, a losing result, minus 10,000.
Race 7, benchmark 75 over the 1,200 metres, and we get a $20 shot home in Soterio.
We needed it too, in fairness, because...
Sumosaurus?
Well, not Sumosaurus. They just had us on toast in this race from the start because Cooper was the opening favourite, but they didn't want a bar of.
They didn't come for that fancy pants.
Exactly. So we were chasing our tails with the deductions and no money for the initial favourite, and they came for Fancy Pants and Hoka Tika Bell as well. I mean, Fancy Pants was $850 into $350. And Hoka Tika Bell, I see, was in season, the Stotch reported, so that was around $21 into about $7 for Hoka Tika Bell. So we got this market all skew with, to be fair, and we needed something rough like Sotorio to get up. That was plus 30, but yeah, Fancy Pants has 1 second up. It got caught down on the inside and the inferior ground on the day there. Maybe Fancy Pants is a follow, but funny race. We got it wrong, and we got lucky with Sotorio.
Race 8, a benchmark 75 over the mile, and Leah Hemi with the Scunner.
Yeah, good ride, Leah Hemi, the Scunner. After deductions, it was a $4 favourite, and customers were sort of boxing around it all day, to be fair. They did like Ragamuffin, and that ran a very good second, $6.50 into $4.40. And then Robbie Patterson, Belladonna Lily. So both the Robbie Patterson pair, to be fair. Belladonna Lily was $6 into $4.50. Ragamuffin was $6.50 into $4.40. We're losing about 90,000 on Belladonna Lily. So, we needed the Scunner, although it was favourite when we opened, got out to $4.40. It was actually plus 40,000 for all the money for that Robbie Patterson pair in the last of the day. So, that's the last one. The Scunner plus 40, Paulie.
And overall, you said a good day for the bookies at Trentham.
Yeah, like Country Salon tipping up those two favourites. Gallant Hero was friendless. Sotorio was the roughie there that we needed, and the Scunner was friendless in the last. So there are a few reasonably large results, which meant Trentham was plus 130,000 for the TAB.
Oh, wait. Let's head up north. Rotorua, it was ITM Stakes Day, Rotorua Cup Day. We start off with a race over the 1,215 metres, and, well, this looks like it must be a very, very good start for the bookies. Ridgeview Vicky at 16.
I know when you say that, you're hoping like anything that it wasn't. That's
no, certainly not.
Certainly not. Yeah, well, look, what I can tell you about Ridgeview Vicky was $14 out to $18, started at $9.50. Now, the move came so late in the marketplace that it, caught a few off guard, and we had a lot of money for Portland, who, in fairness, ran a very gallant second for Stephen Marsh, and also the Sky Above, who was getting home reasonably well, sort of peaked late for the Te Akea team, the Sky Above. So they were the two movers. Portland was 11 into 8, Sky Above 6 into 460. Churn Nibble was the favourite, but it was a bit easy, 340 out to 420. The move came very late for Ridgeview Vicky, 18 into 950, but too late for most people. It was plus 35 the first of the day, Rotorua.
Race 2, it was for the 3-year-olds, 1,400 metres. Dad, sure, this is a great start for the bookmakers. A $10 shot in Sacred Z.
Nick Bashara runner. Look, it wasn't a terrible result. Nick Bashara runners can be particularly well backed. I see Pops has a bit of a soft spot for him as well, and made sure he was the pre-race interview just to rub a bit of salt into the wound. It was minus 10,000 for Sacred Z. That was a good win. He had to chase down the tearaway leader there, which was Ribcracker, who was the hot horse for the last time. Ribcracker dropped back in grade a wee bit. It was 750 into 450. It was its race, or had to be its race. It ran second, so that was the hot horse. And listening was the worst result for the TAB, the James Wellwood runner, but failed to fire. Got into an awkward spot with Warren Kennedy and wasn't a factor. So minus 10 Sacred Z for the Bashara runner.
Race 3, a benchmark 65 over the 1,215 metres, and Matt Cartwright goes back-to-back with Honey Badger at around $4.
The Honey Badger. Wasn't he the great Western Force winger?
I know who you're talking about.
What's his name? You remember his name?
Rocks around in his knickknacks these days. Yep.
That's the Honey Badger. $5.50 into $4. It came out of the Tycoon Prince rating 65 at Te Rapa, and I think Pops, has highlighted that race, or some of the horses in that race in the maiden of the week as they've progressed. It was a strong 65, the Tycoon Prince race. So Honey Badger, $5.50 into $4.40. They nailed this market, to be fair. Blondie was 11 into $5. That ran second. And Bold Choice was the roughie they liked, 26 into 17, and that ran a very gallant fourth. So they nailed it, but it was a small win because of the money for Blondie and a couple of others in the race. Honey Badger plus 10.
Race 4, benchmark 75 over the 1,560 metres. Privy Garden, Craig Grills, Andrew Forsman. This is not sounding good for the bookmakers.
Here we go. The rot sets in here well and truly, Paul Privy Garden. The move came prior to the scratchings, and there were some significant ones in the race around Privy Garden. 5.15 to 3.20, and talking of nailing the market, I mean, the horse that ran second was Bow Hill, and that was 6 into $3.80, and that ran second. There was not much else to speak of. No monies for the likes of Ruak, among others. So, yeah, Privy Garden, they nailed it. Was the hot horse. 5.50 into 3.20, minus 45,000.
Race 5, benchmark 75 over the 1560. And Kevin Myers with Bozo, Billy Pin aboard. Oh, thank you. The bookies probably got, they may have got taught a wee bit of a lesson.
Yeah, towel up. We got towelled up. No, this is the sort of horse you'd back. Bozo, a little bit of money on the Kevin Myers runner at Rotorua, where he has done particularly well. What made this even worse was the lack of money for the favourites in the race. I'm talking about the likes of Pacifico and Desert Mystic in particular, and even Lama Squeet, wasn't really heavily backed, which meant Bozo, which was 10, stupidly out to 13, back to 950 late, was minus 45,000. Mineshaft was the other mover at odds here, 21 into $10, but yeah, we got dummied. We got sold the dummy big
Once
time
again,
with Bozo. 13 into 950, minus 45.
At race 6, it was the Rotorua Cup over the 2,200 metres, and Nigella Lane gets home just in front of Dark Destroyer.
Yeah, Dark
Group
Destroyer.
1 winner, Dark Destroyer.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a while.
He was on his last warning. Well, I say last warning. He's not it's just that he hasn't been racing to that level. And speaking to Bri Weatherly prior to the race, they were saying he might be his last run, may have staved off retirement.
I think he may have with that run.
Yeah, exactly. Still one more decent run in him. So he was 27 into 14 as well, Dark Destroyer. So
they knew.
There was an inkling that he was going to run that sort of race. But, money everywhere in a wide-open cup. The initial move came for Fly My Way, $8 into $5. There was good money for Mbezla. There was good money for Al Jumala, who ran well. And there was good money for Hula Beat again for Stephen Marsh. But there was also very good money for Nigella Lane, who threatening to do this in a race like this. $7 into $5.50, just back to $6.50 late, but customers did like it. was minus 30,000 in the Cup.
Race 7, a benchmark 65 over the 2,200 metres and quid at around $5. I'm guessing more blood on the floor.
No, he giveth and he taketh away. He giveth this time, thankfully.
Wow.
Yeah. Quid was $4.40 out to $6. So they obviously came for Bozo and got the chocolates and then packed up the Myers team because it was plus 30,000 quid. The money came for 2 other runners in the race, Cast of Diamonds, who ran a good second, to be fair, 4 into 340, and Ra Joyce's. There was one BP liked, 550 into $4.60. So they're the 2 they backed. They forgot to back quid. $4.40 out to $6 plus 30.
Race 8, it was the Group 3 ITM Stakes over the 1,400 metres, and the favourite gets home here, so not good news for the bookies, I'm thinking, with Tomodachi saluting.
Well, you'd think that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, but we were saved by the O'Sullivan Scott stablemate and Lux Libertas. Exactly. Yeah. And look, all the money came for her when it got onto a heavy track, and there was that query around the favourite. And there's no doubt she's the class mare in the race, but was she going to handle a heavy 10 at Rotorua? So that meant they all gravitated towards Lux Libertas, who was minus 100,000. In fairness, Tomodachi never got away in the marketplace. It was $2.80 out to $3, crept out to $3, and then back to $2.80 late. So they didn't want to give the quality mare too much rope. And then the other 2 runners that ran in the money, both were shorters. Bedtime Story was 19 into 11, and that ran third. And the one you didn't mind got the run off the ballot, Chante Moi. 23 into $13, ran a good 4th. You'll be following Chante Moi, won't you?
I will indeed, don't worry. Okay, we head to the last of the day, race 9, benchmark 65 over 1,400 metres. And Whiskey and Rye with Maria Sanson getting the 2 kilo claim comes home at 11.40 on the Billy Goat, so a little bit back for bookies in the last.
Check the trainer name.
Nicholas Bashara.
Nicholas Bashara. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Minus 20,000 for Whiskey and Rye. Look, in a wide open race, sometimes that can happen when they're backing a few. No pronounced favourite in the race, and they were just sort of chipping away at the ones they liked, and quite often they like a Bashara runner. Sense of Timing was 9.50 into 7.50. That did finish second, didn't it? Yes, it did. DeLorean was a decent move, 12 into $6.50, and Phoebe Buffet, 8.50 into 5.50 for Friends fans, but she didn't yelp. So, Whiskey and Rye, 11 into 9.50 was well supported, minus 20,000, which made it a losing day at
for the bookmakers.
Yes, you have to keep saying that, don't you? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What point of view are you looking at it from?
I know,
Okay.
Yeah. I tend to look at it from the TAB's view, but yes, not to say I'm not pleased that customers had a winning day at Rotorua, of course, but look, it was the likes of Privy Garden, it was certainly the likes of Bozo and Nigella Lane, which meant it was a losing day at Rotorua, minus 25,000.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's it for another week. The tracks are starting to turn.
Yeah.
The mudders are starting to come back, starting to pick up a wee bit of fitness. So I'm sure you'll be able to find us 1 or 2 good ones in the coming weeks.
Exactly. And it pays to watch the markets this time of year as well, because some horses are up and fit, some are running, some are going to handle tracks, some aren't. Now, we always talk about the power of the marketplace on this little 20 minutes that we do, but it becomes even more prevalent, I think, at this time of year with the marketplace knowing more potentially than our odds setters do around where horses are at their preparation. So keep an eye on it. I'm sure we can find some winners over the next few weeks.
Rightio, that's it. Don't forget to tune in next week for another edition of On the Nose.